5 times in a row and waiting for them to show up. Another time I got lost in Birch Bay. We hiked up on the beach and they all took off and I was lost. I'm wandering on a street and finally somebody picked me up in a car and we're driving back and driving through campsites trying to find my family and found them. But we had a lot of those kind of trips, but one of the fun ones, I remember all the fathers and sons outings. Those were always interesting. We also had all of the right before Tim left on his mission, we had a fathers and sons Salmon Lasac where everyone had their own pole, their own backpacks, and we hiked in, set up camp, and fished up in Salmon Lasac, and that was a good memory. We were all much older then at that point. And then I remember a lot of camping trips with the Apache trailer. And so I remember the Apache trailer doing Birch Bay with the Apache trailer. I also remember Disneyland in the middle of winter with the Apache trailer. Those were some of the highlights.
What was it like when your first kids arrived?
You know, I didn't get married until I was 28 years old. And all my brothers had kids pretty much by then. And except Steve didn't have any yet, but I was hanging out, and I remember spending a lot of time hanging out with Brooklyn because I was still living at home, and Sharon would come over to Mom's house, and Brooklyn and I go for walks, and I'd take her out. We get ice cream and do stuff. So it was like, you know, I was kind of had everyone else's kids as my kids. Same thing with TJ and Aubrey when they were young, and that, and so. But then we had Cassie, and that was great. It was kind of nice to start the same kind of traditions, and then Thomas, and then I remember when we had Ellie, and shortly thereafter, when my kids were 9, 6, and 3, I went through a divorce, and as a result, I've always complained that I got gypped out of parenthood. Because from the time that my kids were 3, 6, and 9, I got to be kind of change things. I got to be more of a favorite uncle instead of a father. You didn't get to help them with their homework. You didn't get that time. You didn't get to teach them how to drive. I didn't get to give Cassie's first date a really bad time, because you have to, right? Didn't your dad give your first date a bad time?
Not really.
Well, shame on him.
I told him that too.
Shame on him.
It's okay, he gave all the other ones a bad time.
Yeah, he gave the other ones bad times. And so the thing was, you got to do a lot of parenthood. Was fun for me. I didn't have a problem with the diapers. I didn't have a problem. I was like the only father that when my 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old's taking swimming lessons in the middle of a work day, I take off and go watch swimming lessons, But when I did go back east, I remember being a coach and assistant coach on every team. I remember I would travel back there on weekends. I basically had 5 days out of every 14 back on the East Coast with my kids for 7 years. I think I missed 2 weekends in 7 years. And when I'd go back, I'd leave Utah on Thursday night, or Thursday morning, and I would pick up my kids Thursday afternoon at school, and I have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, drop them off at school Monday, then fly back. And then a week from the following Thursday, I'd be doing the same thing. Now I look back and I don't know how I did it. I don't know how I could have accomplished that. But that whole weekend, my kids were in soccer or baseball. And I was literally going from one baseball game to the next as an assistant coach, going from one soccer game to the next. There was a lot of good times. They had some pretty good soccer teams and went to playoffs and got lots of things. And so I took what advantages of parenting that I could get.
At this point in your life, what are you most proud of?
I think, honestly, one of the things I just said. I mean, I see a lot of parents these days but the divorce rate is high. They go through divorces, and the father's completely uninvolved in their children's lives. They don't really even know who their dad is. I mean, they know who he is, but they don't know him at all. And that wasn't me. And so I was proud of the fact, probably work-wise, I was successful. I could have retired. I'm 60 now. I could have retired 10 years ago if I wouldn't have done all that visitation and fought for those rights. And I probably would be in a much better financial situation coming into retirement now. As it is now, I probably won't retire till 67. I'll probably work 10 to 15 years longer than I otherwise would have. But to look back on that and say, I commuted for 5 days out of 14 every other weekend for 7 years and missed 2 weekends in 7 years, I'm pretty proud of that. When I look back at my life, I'm proud not that I turned down 2 mission calls, but I'm very proud of accepting that third and getting out there and completing it. And I think that kind of experience helped prepare me for what I went through. When I say I don't know how I got through it, a lot of people would have looked at that after 1 mission call or 2 mission calls. No way would they have tried a third time, but I did. And that's just kind of my makeup. It helped prepare me for experiences that were going to be much, much tougher in life, like the divorce.
Do you guys have more questions?
What do you think lies ahead for you?
60, you retire, and then you die. I don't know that we all look from an eternal perspective, given all of our same background, for what lies ahead. And that's always going to be a central focus in your life, in the church, the gospel, and our eternal perspective. There's no denying that. We all have that. We all have it inbred to us. We all know it's going to happen. We all know where we're headed and what it is. And so from that perspective, we all are going to be influenced in that direction. But at the same time, at this point in my life, it's trying to, I get as involved with my kids as I can, see them as often as I can, and now it's trying to make up that lost ground of income while doing visitation to save up the money for retirement and prepare for retirement. I'd like to go on a mission when I'm a senior, and I don't know, I guess we'll see what the Lord has planned for me. Tackle them one at a time.
How has your membership in the church impacted your life? Maybe the less obvious ones, not like a mission. Obviously, the mission's going to impact.
Dad hit us with a couple of really strong scriptures that he really rung home over and over and over to us. One was Joseph Smith's teachings of, I teach my kids correct principle, and I teach people ask Joseph Smith, well, how do you govern all these people and keep them in line? And he said, I teach them correct principles and they govern themselves. And I think that was a very strong teaching. Another strong one that I got growing up was the 130th section of the Doctrine and Covenants. There was a law I wrote before the foundation. I don't read it that often, but I got quoted to do it by Dad so often. We have it memorized. Before the foundations are upon which all blessings are predicated, it's upon obedience to that law on which the blessing is predicated that you receive the blessing. And so then the other one was forgiveness. Dad used to say, Tom, you sin a lot, so you better be very forgiving so the Lord gives you a very good judgment and is very forgiving of you. And so those are 3 things that really sunk deep in my upbringing. And so now what happens is life gets hard. You've probably gone through challenges. You're going to go through even more challenges. And I'll tell you what, the thing that's always helped me is I don't rationalize sin. I don't rationalize righteous doing. Don't get me wrong. There's a chance to do a prank. Yeah, that does it sometimes. We laugh about it. But reality is, I don't rationalize it. I'm not going to pretend right is wrong or wrong is right. People that do that lose their moral compass. They don't know where true north is anymore. And so they can't find their way back. So throughout life, I'm not a perfect Latter-day Saint, nor have I been a perfect Latter-day Saint throughout my life. But I believe in the gospel, and I have a testimony, and I know what true north is, and I don't rationalize it. If I'm going to do something wrong, I will be the first to say, that's wrong, I did something wrong. But I also don't beat myself up with guilt. Guilt's there for one reason, to tell you you've done something wrong, to learn from it, and then to remind you that at some point you're going to have to repent for it. But I don't let it just destroy me. And then I get back to a point where I get back on the right track. So I always tell people, you know what? I have a testimony, and so I never drift far, and I never drift for very long. And I always come back to true north, because I know where it is.
Are you happy?
You know, by nature, I'm a happy person. I've gone through different struggles, and people have asked me that question at a different time, are you happy? And they're obviously not. But I think happiness is an inside job. You know what? Here's something I believe. Nobody can make you happy. Somebody is capable of making you unhappy. We have the capability to make someone else unhappy, but we personally can't make someone else happy. Only they can make themselves happy. So my thought is you take responsibility of your own happiness. And where that is most unhappiness comes from perception, unrealistic expectation. You know, are you looking at your glass half full or half empty? I've been with people that spend their life complaining about everything that isn't in their life, or everything that you're not, instead of all the things, and they miss out on all the things you are. They complain about all the money they don't have, and they miss out on being the gratitude of all the money and material things that they do have. So the reality is, if you're focused on everything you don't have, or all the things that you aren't, or in a partner or other relationships, if you're focusing on the things that the person isn't, their shortcomings, you're going to be miserable. But if you're focusing on all the things that are good in life, in your life and in their life, and all the things that are good about them, then you're going to be happy. It's a question. That's where it's an inside job. You chose what to focus on. If you're going to focus on the negative, you're going to be a downer. You're going to be a negative Nancy, and no one's going to want to be around you. But if you're focusing on the things that are good, the things that are happy, then you have the strength and the will to push forward and to go on.